Afternoon, and welcome to another River Landing conversation. My name is Jim Kalaki. I'm here with my dear friend Helen Shields, and today our guest is MaryBeth Lynch. MaryBeth, welcome. It's lovely to see you in this setting. We see you in many settings around River Landing, but it's lovely that you're here to visit today. And Helen, as our lead-off questioner, please go ahead.
Your friends call you MaryBeth, and I know people here do too. Is that your given name? Was there any history of your family in it, or how'd you get that name?
My dad decided that I was going to be named MaryBeth. And so he told my mother, you can name her whatever you want, but I'll call her MaryBeth. My mother kind of went, okay, I guess I'll name her Mary Elizabeth. So that was what happened. The only time I got called Mary Elizabeth, I knew I was in big trouble. My dad had a cousin that was named MaryBeth. And I assume that they had a good relationship if he felt strongly enough that he wanted to name me after her.
Well, so it was well-founded, and he
Yes.
did call you MaryBeth.
He always called me MaryBeth. It was my mother who was responsible for calling me Mary Elizabeth. My dad did not like to be the disciplinarian.
Okay.
So my mother he would do whatever needed to be done to discipline me, but it was up to my mother to let me know that I was in trouble.
I'm just reminded, MaryBeth, that listening to you and to our other visitors on this program, if there's anyone out there who is looking for a research project, like a sociology of family person or something, there's a great study waiting to be done on names and the fact that if you're called by your full name, you're in trouble. And then it'll be fascinating here to find out some of those stories about what the trouble was, but
Right.
that's beyond us right now. So where were you born and where did you grow up? And
I was born.
What's your home? What do you think of as home?
I was born in Fort Knox, Kentucky. We left there when I was 8 months old and moved to Japan. My dad was military, so we moved all over the place. We were stationed in Japan for 4 years, and then came back to the States and moved to a number of different states in the United States. Then we moved to Germany for about 2.5, 3 years, and then moved back to the States, and again moved to a number of different states. And then we were supposed to go with my dad to Korea, got all of the vaccinations, including the cholera shot, which is no fun, and then found out we couldn't go.
Interesting.
So we ended up staying in California while my dad was over in Korea. I guess I would consider San Antonio home. We lived there longer than we lived any place else. That was where my dad chose to retire to, and so we lived there from shortly before he retired until I went off to college. And then, of course, when Bill and I married, we were up in Austin for, about 1.5 years, and then moved back to San Antonio. And we're there for about 14 years.
Yeah. I was just doing a little mental arithmetic from what you said, and you would have been a small child in Japan.
Yes.
But then a bit older, maybe approaching your teen years in Germany.
Yes.
What do you think, or what do you recall about living overseas as a young American?
Being in Japan, I have a few memories. Probably the most vivid one I have is going and asking my mother if I could go with the maids off the post, and the maids being really surprised when they came to ask my mother if they could go off the post, and she already knew. It was like, how did she know? I have more memories of being in Germany. I was 8 when we got there, and I was, I think, almost 11 when we returned. And I remember playing with the neighborhood children, which we lived off base there. And so it was a mix of those of us that lived in the apartment complex and the German children that were in the neighborhood. And I have memories of playing with them. And I have memories of going to the little market and being able to spend my spending money at the market. That was so much fun.
Did you speak German?
A few words,
Yeah.
yeah. And I have a few words that I can speak in Japanese as well, and that's about it. It didn't stay.
You, as a lot of people here, as you just spoke, have moved around quite a bit. Where did you live prior to coming to River Landing, and how did you find us?
We lived up in Maryland before we moved down here, and we spent about 2.5 years going around looking at various CCRCs and deciding where we wanted to be. And obviously, River Landing won hands down. We really looked at a lot of places. We looked at about 42 different places before we decided on River Landing.
So did you look up in that area as well as here?
We did, but part of the reason we wanted to move was we were tired of all the snow. And so when we looked up there, it was simply to kind of get us an idea of what CCRCs were all about and kind of get some information, I guess, more than anything else. We knew we weren't going to stay in the area. We just wanted to get some information. And then, of course, we looked at 5 states in this general area, and chose North Carolina, and then chose the Piedmont, and then chose River Landing. So it was a process.
Well, good.
Sounds like you're almost ready to, or certainly qualified to write a guide for seniors to CCRCs, at least in this neck of the woods anyhow.
I think that's what Mary Walter Schaefer wanted us to do.
Well, tell us a bit about your experience and your work life and your interests and so on. You fit in beautifully to River Landing in that everyone has a
Right.
pretty amazing set of stories.
I call myself a Jill of all trades. I don't have any one particular talent, but I've got a lot of various different talents that allow me to fit into just about any job. I've worked as an elementary school teacher. I've worked for a doctor's office. I've worked for a floor covering wholesaler as their complaints desk. I have taught church management software. I have worked as a church secretary. I've done just about a little bit of everything. So I know a lot about a lot of things, but not anything in particular.
Well, your expertise here in our gift shop, you have to have had some kind of a background for that. Tell us about that, and then tell us what the gift shop does or prepares.
Well, to begin with, I worked for a man who owned a Hallmark shop. and then owned my own Hallmark shop for about 4.5 years. And when we moved here, obviously River Landing was interested in my background and wondered if I would take on the gift shop here. They originally asked like 2 weeks after we moved in. And it was like, I haven't even got my boxes unpacked yet. Could we have a little more time? So they came back later and said, okay, now would you be willing to do it? And at that point I said, yes, I would be willing to do it. The gift shop, to me, is kind of a service for our residents. There are a lot of our residents that are no longer able to drive. And so we try to carry a variety of things, from sundries such as laundry detergent, toilet paper, toothbrushes, toothpaste, hand soap, to gift items that they might want to give to someone, or clothing that they might want to buy. And we try to keep our prices at a reasonable price so that our residents can afford them. And we try to be as flexible as we can in trying to make sure that they're able to get those things. If someone has a need for something we don't carry in the gift shop, we try to arrange to get that for them and then deliver it to them. So, like I said, I look at it as a service.
Now tell us about your volunteers.
We have a wonderful group of volunteers. We have, at present, about 16 cashiers. We have about 4 cash counters. And we have 2 ladies that are what we call our card tidiers. They're the ones that go in there and make sure that all of the cards are in the correct pocket and that nobody has put a card in the wrong pocket, so that somebody's looking for, where's the card for grandchild, and somebody's put something else in front of it and they can't find it. So they try to make sure that they're all nice and tidy and that nothing is out of place. We have some people that work behind the scenes. We have a lady that does steaming for us to make sure that everything is nice and pretty when it goes into the gift shop. And we have other people that are doing other kinds of things like that, that are just kind of behind the scenes jobs that they don't get credit for, but they are necessary as well. And we're always on the lookout for new volunteers. Just this week I had 3 people who told me, we're not going to be able to continue any longer, which, that happens.
Sure.
That's the nature of living at River Landing. And so we're always looking for new people to replace the ones that are needing to step away. If somebody is interested, they can contact me. They can contact any member of the resident council, or they can contact Barb Gustafson. Barb has been my right arm this past year. She has helped me so much, both during COVID and just in this kind of hectic period we've had since things have opened up a little more. And so she knows a lot of the answers to questions that people might have. So,
Well, I know that you have at times had a fashion show.
yes, we have.
That comes from all the fashions in the gift shop.
We just had one in October, and I thought it went very well. We had a very small audience. We only had 30 people, but everybody that came seemed to have a wonderful time. The models were fantastic. They were so elegant and they had a good time. You could just tell it. And I thought it was very well received. We're also looking forward to a fashion show in November of our holiday fashions. That will be, I believe it's the 16th. It's a Tuesday. And so we're looking forward to being able to show off our holiday fashions.
Mary Beth, there's two things that come to mind about the store for me. One is just to, if people don't know, that it's under the, first of all, it's totally volunteer.
Yes, it is.
That's the third thing, and that should be first, that everyone is donating their time.
They are. And it's a lot of time.
Including you. And, but it's sort of under the aegis of the resident council,
Yes,
and
it is.
it's the main source of funding for the resident council, which the funds which then are expended as the council decides. And then the third thing, and maybe you could talk a bit about this, if somebody is watching or listening and thinks, maybe I might do that, but I'm scared about being the cash register or dealing with the cash register or the
Whatever. Right.
What goes on for training, and how do you put people through their paces?
We give them training on the cash register. We have them work with a more senior volunteer until they are comfortable with watching how that's been done. Then the senior volunteer will have them do the cash register while they watch over their shoulder until they're comfortable with that. And then when they tell us they're ready, then we put them on their own. I have found that it works much better for them to tell us they're ready than for us to tell them they're ready.
Yes.
When we tell them they're ready, even if they really are, they tend to panic. If they tell us they're comfortable with it, they made the decision, and they're okay with it. So we found that's a better way to work that.
Neat.
And that's true with most of the other areas as well, that we have people that are able to train the people that are going to follow in their footsteps, regardless of what area that is.
And could you talk a little bit about how you decide what's in the store? You talked about the sundries, and I think probably everyone knows about the cards. And to the two people who do the watching of the cards, bravo.
Yes.
That's greatly appreciated, I can tell you.
It's greatly appreciated on my part, too. It would be extremely difficult to run the gift shop if we didn't have somebody that went in there and tidied the cards on a regular basis. Speaking from having run a Hallmark shop, that was something that took up most of the day when I had my own Hallmark shop, was just going through and straightening the cards up.
Yeah.
So it's a very necessary part. As far as choosing things, we work with a wholesaler over in Greensboro, and she helps us kind of look at what she's got and what she thinks might be appropriate for our residents. And then we bring those things and put them in the gift shop. And then anything that doesn't sell both on our regular racks or on the sale rack, we then donate to Scotia Village, and they put in their gift shop. And it's amazing to me that something that will not sell here will go down to Scotia Village and will be the first thing out the door. And it's like, I guess it's just that little bit of difference in the people that are here versus the people that are there. But it's a neat thing that it works out that way.
What pops in mind is, and I mean no offense, of course, to the store and the volunteers, but like if you have something at your garage sale that doesn't sell, but then I take it over to mine, it's similar. There must be, maybe there's another research project
Yeah,
waiting
there's
to be
another
done out there
research
by
for
someone.
somebody to do, yes.
MaryBeth, what's your favorite song or type of music, and how long have you been in that area, or have you changed as you've grown up?
I would have to say my favorite kind of music is church music. And I've been singing that kind of music since I was in probably early middle school.
Okay.
And there's something about that music that just speaks to me. And I just love singing it. I will say that having gone through this hiatus with the pandemic, that I have found my voice is not as good as it was before. And I'm maybe not going to go back to singing after everything's okay again. Or maybe just singing in the shower.
There you go. Okay.
What would you like folks to know about you that they may not already know?
That I'm a carer. I'm somebody that cares about people. I was bullied quite a bit as a child. I was tall. I was thin. I was a redhead. I wore braces. I had it all. And as a result, because of being bullied so much, I have a real heart for people who are hurting, who feel that they're being bullied, whether it's just in their own mind or whether they truly are being bullied. And that's just a part of me now, that I try to make them feel cared about, wanted, that they're somebody that's special. And people may not know that about me because it's not real obvious, but it's a real strong part of me.
Yeah. Tell us about a special river landing experience that you've had since you came here.
That would have to be riding with Mary Walter Schaefer over to New Bern and some of the other areas in that part of the country, as we would go and do talks to people, inviting them to come to River Landing. Mary was a very special lady. She unfortunately is no longer with us, but she was one of the marketing people, and she was just a delight. And it was so much fun to talk with her and to understand her thinking about marketing River Landing and how she made decisions and all of that. And it was really fascinating to just listen to her talk. And that was one of my special memories from being here at River Landing.
We should tell people who may not know, excuse me, that Ms. Schaefer was the marketing director and unfortunately passed away unexpectedly several years ago. And at the time, the River Landing Council, the resident council, with leadership from Wiz Horner, created the River Landing Employees Scholarship Fund in Mary Schaefer's name.
Right.
And that was added to with other endowments since then. And that's one of the, I think, the absolute jewels in the crown for River Landing. And currently, the scholarship committee is giving something like, I believe at the last time there was something like 15 or 17 scholarships for staff members who were going to take on some sort of postgraduate education at an area community college or university.
Right.
And she would be smiling
Yes, she would.
at what's been done in her name.
As you anticipated our conversation today, Were there questions that you thought we might ask you that we didn't, that you'd like to discuss?
Well, I thought you might ask me about my family. I'm the oldest of 4 children. I have a sister in Connecticut, a brother in Amarillo, Texas, and a sister in San Antonio, Texas. And then I have a daughter in Scotland and a daughter in Virginia. My daughter in Scotland has my 2 grandsons, so I'm missing my grandsons. They spent the last 5 years here. And that was wonderful because I got to watch them grow up, and especially my oldest grandson, who is now just turned 16 and is already over 6 foot tall.
Wow.
So I'm missing my grandsons. I miss my daughters as well, but I really miss my grandsons.
Well, your sisters are spread around the country. Do you
Yes, they are.
get to see them?
From time to time. My whole family came for our 50th wedding anniversary, and that was a really special time, and getting to see everybody all at once.
Wonderful.
And in fact, one of my nieces actually was able to come with her mother, and that was really special.
Good.
I should admit or confess that I tried to get MaryBeth close to her family recently. Some of you may have heard me talk about golf. And the European Golf Tour was on the Golf Channel, and they were broadcasting from St. Andrews. And even though this youngster is over 6 feet tall, unfortunately, MaryBeth reported that he was not visible in the crowd at St. Andrews, but we tried.
That's where they live. They live in St. Andrews, but I didn't see any of them there.
What's been a surprise for you at River Landing?
I think the biggest surprise to me was that when the new people that live in the newer area that has been created here at River Landing moved in, we had such a culture of friendliness and being all part of the same group, and it was like they were just a tad bit standoffish when they first arrived. Now, I get that they moved in during what was not exactly the most auspicious time during the middle of the pandemic, but it seemed like it took them a little bit longer to get that friendliness that we're all part of the same group than the rest of us did. And that kind of surprised me. I'm glad that those people have now kind of learned that the rest of us don't bite and that they can be friendly with us. But that really surprised me because we are such a friendly community. For them to be a little standoffish seems strange.
I was talking earlier about research projects and another project I'm sure that somebody is either thinking about or whatever is the history of River Landing and writing about particular events and so forth. And I'm sure when that gets documented, that the last year and a half will really stand out as a very odd time, not just at River Landing, as we all know, but in all sorts of situations all over the world. And I can't still quite imagine to get my head totally around the issue of you show up and then you're told you've got to stay in your house for 3 weeks and you can come out and drive by the clubhouse or drive by down here and pick up a meal that may or may not be what you ordered, and, so on. So I think probably a good amount of
I think that's going to be a big deal for a lot of researchers coming up is what a strange situation that whole period was. Yeah,
gives new meaning to uniqueness, I think, and consequently then how to cope with it, and some stuff that mightn't ever ordinarily have happened.
Right.
And, but here we are and having a nice chat anyhow.
Yes.
And,
And I'm so glad we're able to do that.
so, anything else to put a bow on this conversation? And
No, I think we've covered pretty much everything.
great. Thank you so much for coming. It's been
Thank
such
you.
a treat. Thank you for joining us for another River Landing conversation. All going well, we will be back at the same time next week on 1390, and we'll look forward to enlightening you with another set of lovely stories from one of our residents. Thank you and good afternoon.